So I typically don't do these types of videos where I try to get a review as fast as possible, but this is the one instance where I kinda need to do this because it is Shadow the fucking Hedgehog. And I'll make this super duper brief as I just want to give out my general thoughts and opinions that I feel like I couldn't give out within a singular tweet. First off, the hype and everything leading up to this movie was unreal. I remember seeing the second movie back in 2022 and thinking it was pretty good, but I feel like it had a lot more notable issues. This one I feel like trimmed out a lot of the fat and made it so this movie was a lot more enjoyable for both Sonic fans and general audiences, and I think they managed to hit a pretty good balance here. Scenes didn't feel like they dragged out. My only big issue is a little bit of pacing issues, but that's only because there's so much ground to cover that I feel like the movie doesn't really benefit from its runtime. And I feel like if this movie was a little bit longer, like just a general 2 hours, I feel like we could have gotten a whole lot more. 10 minutes don't sound much, but 10 whole minutes, that shit can go a whole long way depending on how it's done. The general acting and cinematography was a lot better than I thought it would be. I think this is legitimately the best Shadow has looked in years. As for Sonic, I feel like it looks a little weird. It's mainly the eyes, the way they are in some shots, but for the most part he looks fine himself. Same goes for Tails and Knuckles, besides the odd occasional shot. As for the acting chops, I think everything was solid across the board. Ben Schwartz does a pretty good job as Sonic per usual. Same goes for Idris Elba as Knuckles. I feel like he did a fantastic job here, just like in 2. And so far, Idris Elba has been my favorite actor when it comes to the movieverse. The way he portrays Knuckles here is just really fun to watch. At first, I was super duper hesitant when it came to Keanu Reeves playing Shadow, but they managed to work with it. I think there's some lines here that could have used some re-recordings, but for the most part, he did a pretty good job. Personally speaking, if I were to cast a celebrity for Shadow, if I had to, would have been Hayden Christensen, best known for playing Anakin Skywalker in the prequel trilogy. Personally speaking, the way he speaks and the way he talks just encapsulates David Humphrey's inflections and performances of Shadow, but that's just me personally. The only noticeable performance that I realized I was like, wait, that's a little weird, was Colleen as Tails. The only reason why I say this is that her voice is oddly higher pitched compared to her performances in the previous movie and in the games. It doesn't make or break her performance at all, it's just something that I picked up on while watching the movie. Jim Carrey also does a pretty good job at playing both Gerald and Eggman. I was also extremely hesitant about Gerald still being alive here, especially the way the trailers marketed him. It made it seem like it was just gonna be 2 Jim Carreys doing the Jim Carrey, but no, there was actually a lot more thought put into it. At least a lot more thought than the trailers let on. They had this whole familial bonding scene with Gerald and Eggman, which for one was fucking hilarious, when Eggman basically fucking tackled Gerald. That was pretty funny, I can't lie. The part that makes it all come together is that Gerald basically hates all of humanity and manipulates Eggman to help him with his whole plan with the Eclipse Cannon, which explains all of the behavior that's shown within the trailers, and I think it works. There's a whole subplot of Agent Stone basically getting shafted and realizing that Robotnik isn't really a friend to him. It's only for a few scenes, but it has a payoff at the very end, which is the least I could ask for. It culminates to the end where Robotnik basically sacrifices himself and fucking dies, but before he dies, he basically admits to Agent Stone that he was the only friend he ever had. Going back to Shadow, I feel like he was handled a lot better than I thought he would be. There's some major altercations to his story. I don't know if it's for better or for worse, but it basically came from space. It's not elaborated what planet he's from or anything like that. He was just found in a rock. The reason why I say this, it could have been a perfect opportunity to bring up the Black Arms or something related to it, but no. And he's brought in by Gunn. The part that's confusing is that it was established in the last movie that Gunn was made because of Sonic coming to Earth instead of it just always existing, which is kind of a weird oversight in my opinion. I might be misremembering because, it could just be a generic government facility, because it does mention that the reason why the Eclipse Cannon was built was so Gerald could get his freedom from the US government. The movie did a good job at exploring Shadow and Maria's relationship, which is all I could really ask for Shadow's backstory and this sort of thing. And while it's weird that it doesn't mention why she's with Gunn, it's just sort of thrown in there, I guess. Which I feel like there could have been a bit more explanation, but I think for the most part, the way Maria was thrown into it was pretty solid. Makers clearly cared about making you want to care the whole relationship with Maria and Shadow, and I applaud them for doing that. Unfortunately, she does not get shot off screen, or at the very least, she just dies from a nearby explosion, which describing that out loud is a lot more gruesome compared to just getting shot. But yeah, the way Maria's death was handled is really good. It's the same deal as the games, where the government just comes in trying to clear everything and all evidence, including all witnesses as well. The only difference is that Commander Walters tries to stop a soldier from shooting Maria, but because of the stray bullet and him misdirecting the gun, it causes an explosion, which also ended up causing Maria to get hurt really badly within the process. By the way, if you don't remember who Commander Walters is, that's the Olive Garden guy. And surprisingly, he plays somewhat of a key factor within the story, which is a little weird, but sure, why not? It works. Also, that whole thing of Gerald manipulating Shadow's memories got sort of intertwined in the movies. While he's not manipulating his memories, Gerald is just manipulating Shadow the whole time for him to keep fighting alongside him, which makes a lot of sense. Hell, there's parts where Gerald tries to manipulate Eggman, and Gerald basically not wanted to do anything with him because he only wanted him to power the Eclipse Cannon. With him going, "You're not Maria," which is definitely a cool direction to take it in. The Eclipse Cannon is handled a little bit differently. One big noticeable difference is how it looks. I do admit that it's a bit of a shame that they omit the game design of the Eclipse Cannon, but I think the one they chose here looks pretty cool. Still keeps the Eggman aesthetic with it, with the face and mustache being at the top or upper parts of the Eclipse Cannon. Another notable thing is the way the thing operates. Instead of using Chaos Emeralds, it uses 2 government keys, which is what the main focal point of the plot is, where it's basically Team Sonic trying to get to the keys before Eggman does, which causes the government to not trust Sonic because they think that he stole it from Commander Walters, because he's the one who gave Sonic the key. It's honestly impressive how they managed to tie the human stuff here as well. For me personally, I was never one who was adamantly against them being here. Personally speaking, as long as they're entertaining in some kind of way, I don't really care or mind them being here at all. Hell, I'm one of the few people who actually enjoyed the wedding scene in Sonic 2. The way Tom and Maddie are integrated here, both played by James Marsden and Tika Sumpter, do a pretty good job at it, with them infiltrating Gunn's facility. And while the plan works for the most part, it's until then Shadow just comes in and basically ruins it all, and fucking decks Tom really fucking hard because he thought he was Commander Walters because of the disguise he wore to break into the facility. I'm bringing this up because they're important to the story, and not only that, they're also pretty entertaining here as well, I can't lie. The action set pieces and everything about it was just fantastic to watch all around. The first fight with Sonic and Shadow was pretty fun to watch with them in Tokyo, and the other encounter with them inside the facility with Shadow and Team Sonic was also pretty fun to watch. Except like the scene beforehand, it gets interrupted by something. Like there's a scene that just straight up has a Family Guy cutaway-esque gag, but it's weird because it doesn't break the pacing at all with the scene. It's just a very noticeable thing. Same goes for Robotnik's introduction scene again. It has this little gag where he's just watching a telenovela, which is kind of funny, but it's a little weird and confusing on first watch. Hell, we see it happen again with Agent Stone and Shadow. But the strange part is that scene comes full circle and ends up revealing Gerald's entire plan because of one offhanded sentence that Shadow said that made Agent Stone realize the whole plan and basically try to tell Eggman that Gerald was manipulating him, but it didn't get through to him. And then there's also the scene inside the gun building where Sonic is fighting against the gun agents, and it all leads up to Shadow mistakenly attacking Tom. Well, it's not mistakenly, he intended to hurt him, but he didn't know it was Tom. He thought it was Agent Walters. The way Supersonic is brought back into the movie with the fight was really, really well done. They were sort of using the emeralds as a last resort option, with Sonic and Knuckles having a bit of an argument about using it, which I thought was an interesting thing because, you know, Tom was hurt really badly in the scene prior, so he's fucking angry as hell, and it's very, very understandable to see where he's coming from. And it all leads up to Supersonic trying to beat the shit out of Shadow, but the part that's cool, the part that Power Scalers are gonna have a field day with, is that Base Shadow knocks him out of Super, takes the emeralds, and goes Super as well, which, mind you, I actually really like the way he's designed here. At first I thought it was like pure white or like a silverish color like how he was in the prototype, but no, he's like this weird pink gold color. I don't know how to describe it. It's like this light pink color, and honestly, I really fuck with it. But then it has this fucking cool ass fucking fight between Supersonic and Super Shadow. It's just so fucking cool to look back on because it's reminding me so much of fucking Nazo Unleashed from when I was a fucking kid. Like, that's what it felt like seeing that for the first time. But then afterwards, they come to an understanding and have this little talk on the moon, and I really do like the scene. And the whole scene of Shadow looking at the stars and how it reminds him of Maria with that one little talk they had years and years ago. I enjoyed it. And about the last 30 to 40 minutes of the movie is just, it's all perfect. It is quite literally the best ending to any Sonic thing in a long while. And it's probably what I could have wanted for and then some. Like, y'all don't understand how long I've been wanting to hear Live and Learn on a big screen, like on a big theater screen, for all of my life. And I finally got it. And with Gerald basically coming in and like getting all the SC2 gun robots to attack them, and they're just cool fucking fight scene in space, and then they fucking fit it off with the pose while Live and Learn is playing. It's just, it's perfect. I can't find any flaws within it besides, I don't know, Live and Learn should have played a bit more. But other than that, that's it. And with both of the Robotniks dying from the Eclipse Cannon, one for being pushed into the Chaos Energy, which honestly, the way Gerald's character was built up to just this, you know, he's like, humans are a failed experiment, blah, 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 and then dies in like the most anticlimactic ways, probably the best case of irony I've ever seen. It's also one of the funniest jokes in the entire movie, with Shadow himself dying pushing back the Eclipse Cannon laser. With him taking off the inhibitor rings and pushing it farther back with the remaining power he has. Dude, it's so cool. Also, I wanted to mention, Movie Tales fucking does something. Finally, it took him like 2.5 movies, but he did something, and that's cool. Thank God they finally fucking did something with him. I don't really got much complaints to say here besides the soundtrack being kind of generic. And there's some instances where it has references to pre-existing songs from within the games, but it doesn't go all out like the Mario movie, where like it's a constant barrage of like musical references to whatever scene is happening with the game music. Here it just feels like, here you go, shut the fuck up, you finally got your video game music. That's what it feels like here. And while I do appreciate the ones we have, I feel like there should have been a whole lot more. And I still think Junkie XL is a fucking hack, even outside of Sonic stuff. If you know, you know. Now it's time for the actual big spoilers, despite me talking about almost the entire fucking movie, and I said earlier that there's gonna be big fucking spoilers. The post-credits scene, there's 2. So I'll go over the second one, which is less of a spoiler, but it's kinda obvious if you know the Sonic series. Shadow survives. It's fine for me, I just want to know where exactly his character is gonna go, and I'm cool with him being alive still. I'm not for one to speculate for what exactly they're gonna do with this sort of thing, but I'm fine that he's still alive. I just care more about how exactly his character is gonna be taken into account from here on, especially the fact that, you know, there's been rumors of a possible Shadow spin-off TV show. Shadow as a character is a lot more story-heavy compared to someone like Knuckles. So it just makes it confusing what exactly they're going to do here, if there is a possible spin-off show. The other post-credit scene that's also just as confusing, at least for the next movie, is Metal Sonic and Amy. It makes you think that they're gonna do CD, but the Metal Sonic clones makes me think otherwise, because it makes me think it's gonna be a mix of a lot of things. But the main thing that stuck out to me is that it's probably going to be an adaptation of the Brotherhood of Metallix from the Fleetway comics, which is a fucking deep cut. I never thought the Fleetway comics would get something like this, even like a little nudge to it. And honestly, I'm all here for it, because then that means the main Metal Sonic is going to be called Metallix, and the closer we get to SMBZ happening is going to be when I die a happy fucking person. Joking aside, I don't know what exactly they're going to do here, but for me, I don't really like Amy as a character. I never really did, even as a kid. So it's going to be a little confusing to try to get my bias out of the way. So I don't know exactly what they're going to do here. I don't know any potential voice actresses for her or anything like that. It's cool that she's here. Just me personally, I don't really care for her all too much. Now, if we do put my bias into perspective, try to shaft her as much as possible. I'm kidding, mostly. But yeah, Sonic 3 is pretty good. I'd say to go watch it, or pirate it, or I don't know, just go watch the fucking movie. Big shoutouts to my friend Naomi for watching the movie with me. We went to the same theater, like last time. We did get a reaction for the mid-credits scene, so I'll put that on link in the description if you really care about that sort of stuff. But yeah, go check it out. Thank you all so much for listening to me ramble about my general thoughts and opinions on this semi-review, I guess. There wasn't much visuals for me to work with here because the movie isn't out yet on streaming or anything like that, and I had to rely on cam rip screenshots. So yeah, very, very sorry about that. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all in a couple months, maybe longer, and take it easy.